going to be taking a look at a small city in the highlands of Guatemala called Almolonga. Many are calling it the City of Miracles because radical transformations have been taking place in almost every aspect of this Mayan community. But just about everything good that can be said about Almolonga is a recent development. Before the changes started to happen, the economy was in ruins. The city was plagued with poverty and disease, drug addiction, alcoholism, and violence were rampant. Because of these hardships, the people of Almolonga looked for help to an ancient pre-Columbian idol named Mashimon. He's a supernatural spirit being that must be worshipped with offerings of alcohol, tobacco, and money. Mayan priests had to be drunk before they could even approach Mashimon to seek his blessings. As part of the worship ceremony, the priests would give lit cigars or cigarettes to the idol, and then they would spit out alcohol on the devotees. It was also the custom in Almolonga to get the children drunk in order to teach them at an early age to be faithful to the idol. What the followers of Mashimon hoped to get in return was good fortune, but what they got instead was an endless cycle of spiritual oppression. Donato Santiago is the police chief of Almolonga. He says there was never any peace. There was a lot of violence towards women. Crowds would gather around the bars every night just to watch the drunks get into fights. Every morning, men who were still drunk or injured from the night before could be found lying in the streets. Santiago needed 12 armed deputies to help him patrol the town. The city had 4 jails to hold the worst offenders, and the jail cells were always full. There was a small group of Christians in Almolonga who wanted to change their community, but they didn't know how. A pastor by the name of Mariano Riscache and a couple of others started having a prayer vigil every night. At first, the spiritual warfare was intense, but after a while, people in the town started getting delivered from the spirit they identified as Mashimon. Those being set free often coughed up blood or got thrown around the room or even flung out into the street. Among those was a respected Mashimon priest named Jose Albino Tasay. Tasay was a successful shaman, but he was also a violent alcoholic who was abusive to his wife and children. Without saying anything to him, the prayer group started praying for Tasay. Then, after a month-long drinking ceremony to honor Mashimon, Tasay collapsed against the wall and he could not move a muscle. He cried out to God to save him. Instantly, his mind became clear and he was set free from his addictions to alcohol and tobacco. Tasay went home and he burned all of his shamanic paraphernalia. The next day, he started taking his family to the prayer meetings. This got a lot of attention in the community. By now, new churches were springing up all over the place, but the spiritual battle was far from over. The followers of Mashimon began to disrupt church services and threaten believers with violence. Evangelists were attacked by vicious mobs and beaten with sticks and shovels. Church windows were smashed out with rocks and empty liquor bottles. One night, a group of masked men kidnapped Pastor Mariano and tried to kill him. 3 times, they tried to shoot him in the face. 3 times, their guns wouldn't fire. They became so frightened at not being able to kill him that they ran away, leaving him tied up to a chair. At the same time that this violent opposition was going on, God began to heal many desperately ill people in the city of Almolonga. One was a lady named Teresa, who was raised from the dead after a botched medical procedure. When the news got out that Teresa was alive again, people started flocking to her house to get prayers for healing. As the power of God continued to spread in Almolonga, the priests of Mashimon began to lose all their paying customers. Finally, they packed up their idols and they moved them all over to the nearby city of Sunil. When they left, the curse that was on Almolonga just seemed to leave with them. The once busy house of prostitution went out of business. Most of the town's 33 bars not only closed down, but many of them were converted into storefront churches that now hold worship services every day of the week. Before the transformation happened in Almolonga, there were 3 little churches and 33 busy bars. Now there are 33 busy churches and only 3 little ramshackle bars. Police Chief Santiago is amazed at the change. Crime has disappeared. There's no more unemployment. There's no more violence. No more drunks. Almolonga has closed down all 4 of its jails. The building that once held dangerous criminals has been remodeled and is now being used for wedding ceremonies. The city has experienced a tremendous economic growth as well. When people started turning to God, the farm fields around Almolonga became so fertile that they began to yield 3 huge harvests every year for the first time ever. Before revival broke out, the farmers of Almolonga exported about 4 truckloads of produce a month. Now, it's 40 truckloads every day. The carrots being harvested are larger than your arm, and the cabbages are the size of basketballs. These harvests are so remarkable that agricultural research teams from around the world are coming to Almolonga to study their farming methods. Local farmers are starting to get rich. They're buying up the land in surrounding communities, and they're hiring people from nearby towns to work the fields. And they're buying new Mercedes-Benz trucks to ship their produce to market. Pastor Mariano's father, who now owns a farm himself, is astonished by the progress. He says that we never dreamed of selling our produce outside of Guatemala, but now we're exporting to other nations. More than 90% of the residents of Almolonga now call themselves Spirit-filled Christians. And they've even erected a sign at the entrance to the city that reads, "Jesus is Lord of Almolonga." By almost any standards, Almolonga has become one of the most thoroughly transformed cities in the world.